I've even got a big post-it note saying press record, but
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, so okay, hello and good morning. We're just about to get started on the session called Using the Moodle Template with myself, Mike Wilson from Academic Development, and Amy Barlow, the Head of Academic Development.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to take you through the process of kind of designing the UOP module template and the guiding principles behind it. So we'll jump straight in, I think. Here are the learning outcomes for this session. By the end of the session, you'll be able to identify the delivery methods for teaching at distance, which are mainly flipped and blended learning. You'll understand how to use the UOP module template, be able to describe how regular knowledge checks can improve distance learning, and to be able to identify which key components of online teaching can be retained when face-to-face teaching resumes. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. It's probably best if you put them into the chat and then we can kind of field questions that way. And there will be time at the end as well if you want to unmute your mics and we can have a chat. Okay, I'll just run you through what we're going to cover. In a second, I'm going to hand over to Amy to talk about the guiding principles, which the template was designed against. We'll talk about the rollover process and how the template is applied to your module. And then we'll actually jump into the template and look at how it's structured and some typical activities that you could use. We'll also look at how you can adapt it to meet your needs using some headings and styles that are available to you, and how you can adjust the blend between face-to-face sessions and online sessions as you need. Okay. So before we jump into any of that, I'm going to put this link in the chat. It's to a Padlet board. So we just want to really want to kind of get an idea of what you're hoping to get out of this session, and it's really in terms of what you think you need most help with in terms of teaching online. So if you press that link, you will see this Padlet board, and in the bottom right hand corner there's a pink circle with a plus sign. You use that to add a post, and I'll use these suggestions to kind of tailor what I say during the session and try to give you some solutions to how we can help. Okay, yeah, understanding which of the many tools there are. We've definitely got some slides on that. I'll move some of these over into the centre. They do get to stack up. Teaching on other people's modules. I'm hoping that there will be a similar template as I move forwards. Yes, I think the majority of people will apply the standard template and then adapt it slightly, possibly, but it will be within the same structure mainly. Yeah, knowledge checks. I will talk about knowledge checks and the importance of knowledge checks, but we do have a full session on that, looking at the different tools and how to use them, which is later today. I think it's 1 o'clock. So have a look at the programme, and it's well worth coming to that one. We could give a good overview of about 6 tools that you could possibly use. Coordinating tools that can be used with large groups. Okay, that's fine. A bit further down, I would like to know if I can add sections to the module template, a section on assessment, an introduction to the module such as teaching overview. Yes, I'll cover that as we go through it. Tools. Yeah, that's finished. I'll move that one over. Support our colleagues. As a faculty librarian, I often get asked to contribute content to Moodle, and so I want to ensure I understand best practice and what to suggest that I put, use, and where to put it. Okay, kind of structure of things, that's fine. What tools are available and how to use them. Yeah, I'll signpost some good resources in that area. Okay. Sources. Okay, so a lot of these questions are about the tools and the structure of things, so I'll concentrate mainly on that. Are we restricted to week-by-week sections? I tend to organise my Moodle pages by topics, themes, rather than week-by-week headings. Okay, I'll come back to that. Weeks versus topics. Okay, that's great. That gives me a good idea of what to concentrate on. Thank you very much for posting those. Using activities in the book, how can you link to these properly? Right, and we're definitely covering that. Fantastic. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for contributing to that. I'll jump back into the presentation. So, okay, at this point, I'll hand over to Amy to talk about the principles of blended learning.
Morning, everybody. Nice to see so many of you here today. I'm just going to explain this slide, which kind of outlines how we got to the approach that we're taking today. It's come out of an evidence base in terms of how we use technology for learning, and also student feedback that we gathered. So we've got these 4 principles, and they're nothing really new to the institution. They're things that we do very well and have been doing well for a long time, but they're basically kind of the overarching foundation for the approach that we've then taken in Moodle. So they're kind of things that we want to prioritise, and the institution is kind of saying to you, you know, there's a lot going on. These are the kind of the things to think about for next year. So The first one is pedagogy led. So it basically means we want you to think about how you teach currently, what you know works, and the technology should come second to that. So it's about keeping what we know is a really excellent offering for our students and enhancing that with the technology. One of the big gains that's been made with the move to online is around our accessibility. So we have our second principle there, which is inclusive and supportive. So thinking about how we're going to cater for the diverse needs of students who might have different access in terms of the technology they can use, and that is something which the template has been designed to help with. We, as always, are encouraging everybody to talk to their students, and as we get going in October, in these strange situations, it's really important to discuss on week by week basis with students how are they finding the structure, the tools, have they got everything they need. And lastly, we want to kind of recognise that we are really aspirational with what we're doing, and we are sort of leading the sector in a lot of these kind of elements. So those are the guiding principles, and you'll see how the template kind of enables them. It's worth saying that this has been borne out of feedback from students who have said to us that they find it difficult to move between modules when they all look very different. They also find it difficult to use WebEx for one meeting and then go into Google Meet for the other, or Zoom. They want things to be similar in the look and feel so they can get used to using them. And that's really what the template is about. It will provide some common building blocks and a structure, and the rest is completely flexible and for you guys to make the most of. So I'll hand back to Mike, and he'll be able to show you what we're talking about.
I was just partway typing a message back to Rich Folks about accessibility. Just on accessibility, we've done a lot of work on the Moodle interface over the last couple of years to comply with accessibility standards, but really to improve the experience for staff and students. There's a lot of work going on at the moment for a redesign of Moodle with that in mind, which is available on one of our test servers. If you'd like to have a look, Rich, we'd appreciate your feedback. And that will be available to staff at the end of the summer. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about how we, who we spoke to and what we looked at in terms of the template solution. So I'll start from the bottom of that list. Actually, we spent a lot of time talking to academics from various faculties about their approaches since March. So how they delivered their sessions online, what students liked, what students didn't, and that very much informed what we did. We spoke to the Institute of Criminal Justice Studies over in Humanities because they teach a lot of online pure distance modules, and we looked at institutions like the Open University who have been teaching online for decades. And what came out of that is that a flipped methodology for delivery is the most straightforward and productive, I suppose, approach to teaching at distance. From the work streams and strands that we worked on, a clear message came back that rather than providing too many options, staff would appreciate one clear steer on how to teach at distance from October onwards. So we initially looked at a flipped template and a more blended template, which is more flexible. But we landed on the flipped being the best steer forwards, and I'll show you what that means as we work through the materials. So in terms of the process for getting access to the template, I'm just going to link to one of our support sites, which I'll show you the link to at the end of the session. So this is our preparing for teaching in a blended learning context, and the second tab is about the UOP module template tool. So when you come to the end of the academic year, your modules are rolled over by your online course developers. So the old version is pushed to an archive, so it's safe, so students can go back and look at their materials if they want to, and a new version is created for the new academic year. At that point, you get access to a module template tool. A quick screenshot there of what it looks like. We'll come to that in a second. And that will allow you to choose the template which best fits your needs, have it applied, and then you can adapt and develop your module content to fit to fit your needs. So I'll show you that in practice now. So if I jump to one of my test courses, which is here, and we should see that I haven't enabled it yet, so give me just a second to do that. This module is becoming longer and longer as I keep applying the template a number of times. But basically, the template chooser is displayed on the page with guidance to yourselves about support materials and which template you should choose. So there we go. So this is what when you land on your Moodle module, this is what it will look like. We're very clear that you should really contact your local online course developers in the first instance to give you some help applying the template and making sure it fits what you need it to do, and also to roll over your module. You can link to that help site I spoke about here, and then you have your 2 module templates that you can choose from. In the majority of cases, so 95% of cases, the UOP module template is the one you should choose. As I say, it's based on flipped delivery, and I'll cover what that means in a second. And you can view a preview of a populated module via this link. There is a second option, which is the additional format, and all that does is it switches your module over to a weekly format, because this is very important for keeping students on task and providing clear signposting. There was a comment earlier about weeks versus topics. We're not saying you have to switch over to weeks, but we are saying that a weekly layout is easier for students to follow. I'm studying on a couple of modules which are topics based, and I do find it quite difficult sometimes finding the resources for a given week. You have to know what it's called, you have to know where it is, and you have to be able to find it easily, and that's not always that straightforward. In a weekly delivered module, you can signpost activities within the 3 main headings, which I'll cover. And when students are studying at distance, you really do need to have very clear signposting. You do need to lay things out very logically and step by step work students through the resources. We've got settings within Moodle now that you can tick off progress as you work through it, so students can very easily keep on task and see what they need to do in any given week across all of their modules. So as I say, the UOP module template is the one we'd recommend in the majority of cases. If I press the preview button now, which I'd really encourage you to do yourselves, you can explore a populated Moodle module with the template applied. Okay. So in this first week, you will see a weekly introduction, a group collaboration activity heading, and a further reading extension activity section. So these are the 3 main sections in any given week. If I show you my test course with this applied, so I'll go and press the use template button. So I'm happy with the preview, I'm happy with what it's going to do, and now I'm going to apply it to my module. You will see, once it's imported, that 16 weeks are inserted to the top of the module, and these correspond to the 12 teaching weeks of teaching block 1. And once this section appears, you will see consolidation week and the Christmas break as well. So consolidation week, Christmas break, and then the 12 teaching weeks in amongst those. You'll also see an assessment and support material section, and this is a good place to put all your assessments and supporting materials. So examples of good assignments, links to ECF process documents, any guidance you think will be useful for students. If you tag those assessments with a summative assessment tag, those assessments are then popped into the assessment tab at the top of the page, so students know which assessments they need to do to pass the module. In each of the sections down the page, so you can see it starts from the 5th of October, you'll see those 3 headings I spoke about with the guidance of what should go into each of those sections. I'll cover what that is in a second. But yes, clear instructions which you can take out and then replace with the guidance to students. So if I pop back now to my populated preview page, so in the weekly introductions, the first section, you need clear instructions for what students are expected to do, followed by a welcome video. it really is key to put this welcome video in. It's very straightforward to do that using an icon in the browser. But because students are working on guided self-study materials in this first section, so they're working on their own through materials, it's nice to have a welcome message from yourselves, just introducing them to the week's activities. As a piece of best practice, I find, adding that video last is easiest. So once I've created all my materials and I've written the instructions, these instructions really become a script for what the video says, but it's a lot easier when putting it in last. If I switch editing on, I'll show you how to add that video really easily. So I'm going to edit that label, which the heading appears in. Edit settings, and then you'll see this video icon. So it's very, very straightforward. You place in the text where you want it, you press the video icon, you press start, and you press stop, and it's inserted. The videos don't need to be more than 30 seconds to a minute, but it does give a friendly feel to that section. As I say, students will be working on their own in that section, so it's very useful. So the main activities that you'll include in this section are the recorded lecture or talk sessions, and we really encourage you to deliver those via a Moodle book. This means you can break the recordings up into small chunks. We'd recommend 5 to 10 minutes rather than just dropping an hour lecture onto the course. This means that students won't find it quite as intimidating, that they can manage their time easier because they'll see that the chunks, the natural breaks in each of the sections. It means you can include activities with it between sections, so you can link to resources, you can put questions in between. We will very soon have access to Panopto, which is a state-of-the-art lecture recording package. It's very, very straightforward to use. It all works within a browser. You'll be able to press a button within Moodle, record a lecture, and split it into sections. You can add questions in between. It's very, very straightforward. But we'd, as I say, very much recommend that you put those recordings into a separate chapter of the book and just label them up. I've added these in at 15 minutes each, but actually that's probably on the kind of the upper end of what you should be aiming for. We'd recommend aiming for 5 to 10 minute chunks if you can, at the natural breaks within the materials. I'll show you just very quickly, there was a question about books. For those that haven't used a Moodle book before, it is very, very straightforward, possibly one of the most straightforward pieces of Moodle. If you add an activity or resource and then scroll down to the bottom, you'll find book. I'll add that one, and all I need to do really is give the book a title. So this week's lecture, a description if I wanted to as well, can go there, and then I just press save and display, and that's the book created. And then you just create the series of chapters with your content. So topic 1's chapter is there, and I can just drop that icon down, press the HTML icon, and my embed code that we created from my Panopto video or video from another source can be dropped into that page. So it's very, very straightforward to create a book, to structure things, but it does gives you a really nice structure to things and breaks it down into manageable chunks for students. So other things that can appear in this section, we'd recommend the accompanying slides so that students can explore detailed images or links to other resources which are on your slides. This is not the predominant delivery mechanism, it's just accompanying material. You could also put core reading, links to Talis, Aspire, and importantly, we'd really encourage you to put a knowledge check activity in that section. So students are working on their own in the materials to start with. That's really how Flipped works. The majority of the acquisition of knowledge is done with students on their own, in their own time, so they can do it whenever they want to. But you need to check how they've grasped those key concepts, and a knowledge check is a really good way of doing that. You can do it using a variety of tools. We have a session today at 1 o'clock where we'll explore some of those tools. At its very simplest, you can use a Moodle forum to ask students which topic they struggled most with, which section of this week's materials could I do with recapping in the live sessions. But you can also ask multiple choice questions using a Moodle quiz, or you can use a Google form to do similar things. It's very easy to do, but it's very important, and it helps you check engagement. Are students watching the materials? Are they acquiring the knowledge that you want them to, and what have they struggled with? What can you do with recapping? That's really why knowledge checks are very important at distance. So the second section in any given week is group collaboration activities, which can take various forms. I'll hand over to Amy to talk about a few of those examples.
Fantastic, thank you, Mike. Hopefully it's all starting to kind of slot into place for you. So the template is this kind of structure of introduction and then moving into collaboration activities. Now, this has been designed so that it can be completely distance learning if we need it to be. So if we find ourselves in a situation where we're back in lockdown with little notice, we can use the template for that, and that's really, I think, the focus of how the curriculum is delivered when you're planning your first few weeks, I would say. So I would sort of think about this as being the main space, and then the contact time that you get, which will vary across courses depending on how you've allocated it, is going to be where you do the collaboration activity. So we've got that space, which can be it can be a seminar where you're all in the seminar together. It can be a forum where there's a discussion. And in terms of contact time, that is the equivalent. So if you were sat in a room with students having a discussion around a table, or you're in a discussion forum having an asynchronous discussion, that is an equivalent. You don't need to replicate, to double up. And I can see that Alexander's written a question there about how would we capture face-to-face seminars for students who are shielding. So it's really, really tricky to run a seminar, especially with social distancing, and also capture that or have students in the room on a laptop or something. It's extremely challenging, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you are extremely confident with the technology. So the idea is that you would have, if you do have your physical seminar, you have that, and then in this space here, there's something which captures that content, and it's laid out in the content capture policy, and it doesn't have to be a replication, duplicating everything. It just needs to be something which, for the students that weren't there, they can read. They can perhaps have a short, you could do a 1 minute kind of audio summary of what was covered or what people should look at if they're not there. And that kind of is the way to kind of have that ability for people to engage, even if they're not kind of there. So Sabria's asked about adding a WebEx link. Yeah, so that's exactly what would go in the group collaboration activity. So if you were doing a WebEx session, which would be an interactive session, so we're not asking people to use WebEx just to lecture for an hour. We'd rather you pre-recorded your lectures in small chunks, and they would go in that top section, which is about delivering the content. So the collaboration would either be a WebEx link, a Google Meet, or something which is a bit asynchronous, which is a discussion or a task that kind of carries on. Okay, I'll hand back to you, Mike, to go through the next bit.
Thank you. Just feedback on a couple of questions. So there, within the template, there are 12 teaching weeks plus consolidation week and the 3 weeks of Christmas, and the assessment week topic space as well for you. So yeah, it does match up to the academic calendar. We can make adjustments if needs, if the start term gets delayed for any reason, but it starts from October the 5th. Okay, so I'm just going to pop back to that Moodle module again. If I can work out how to get out of full screen mode, that is. There we go. So so going back to here, so just to recap what flipped delivery is for a few people that were asking about it. So flipped delivery is when the main acquisition of knowledge, the main lecture materials are delivered first, and so students study those on their own whenever they want to, and then they meet together in the group collaboration section. So this is typically online. This would be a WebEx discussion, as Amy was saying. So this is delivered live. So the students meet together, they see other students, they talk to other students and the academics, but it's very much a synchronous activity online. That can be swapped out for a face-to-face session if that's available as well, very easily in this section. But it's important, if you deliver online, please also make the recording available so that students can recap certain bits of the discussion, or for students that can't attend for any reason, they can also access the materials. So the final section is further reading and extension activities. And this is where we're trying to encourage students to become independent learners, to read past the materials, to look around for their own sources of information, but also we can signpost useful resources here as well. So just encouraging students to read past the materials. You can also put recap activities here as well if you want to. Okay, back to my slides. And okay, so the template applies those styles. You can adjust those. So if you edit the label that's attached to each one of those main 3 headings, so the introduction, collaboration, and further reading, you can change those to match your purposes. We spent a lot of time renaming the group collaboration activity. It was tutorial, it was seminar, it was discussion, because different faculties have got different names for the same thing. So if group collaboration activity doesn't fit your purposes, all you need to do is edit that label and change it. You also have access to some other headings as well: large group activity, small group activity, core resources, assessment guidance. Again, you can call those whatever you want, so you can mix it up if the template doesn't quite fit your needs. Please feel free to adapt it to suit. There's also, if you look at the bottom here, it says guidance for students, so that's just a generic guidance message that is matched up to any of the headings and allows you to put in those signposting instructions to students. So these are the main headings that appear at module level on that main page of your Moodle site. Within activities such as Moodle books or lessons or pages that you create, when you put text for students to read, you often need calls to action within those sections. So things you want students to do. So whether it's to take part in an activity, to watch a video, listen to a podcast, reflect on their own practice, these boxes are available to you, and they're really for activity level, just to make things pop a little, so students can see what they need to do amongst there. So use those as you need. Those are available to you as well. Okay, as Amy was saying, the group collaboration section is really where the blend comes in. When we talk about a blend, so flipped delivery is a form of blended learning. When we talk about blend, we're really talking about the blend between face-to-face sessions and online sessions. And in the first instance, this was designed for pure online delivery, but it's becoming clear we will possibly have access to 2 hours of face-to-face teaching a week per module. So the blend can come in that group collaboration section. I just want to show you just an activity I created in H5P, which is an interactive package which lets you create very straightforward interactive elements for online delivery. And I just wanted to kind of illustrate some of the activities and tools you can use. There was a question on the Padlet board along those lines. So if we look at fully online, here's an idea of some of the activities you could use in each of the sections. So you can deliver via videos, via Moodle books, or using Google Forms for knowledge checks. Here, the middle section is some of the tools you can use for delivering face-to-face online sessions, so where students meet up live, and further reading activities at the bottom. If I just flip that slider across, so face-to-face sessions can be slotted into that section. You can telegraph them within that section. whether they be lab sessions or studio space sessions, whatever they would be. That is the section that it lends itself best to that. And there we go. There's a few more options for different tools you can use. As I say, that there are a lot of sessions this week kind of covering these tools, so please go along and have a look at them so you can get an idea of what works. A lot of the sessions are kind of an overview of the tools rather than going into great detail, because we do run online training courses for them in more detail. So go along, find out how you like to do it, and then maybe attend one of our courses to find out how to do it in more detail. Okay, so I will exit that one. I've covered a few support sites as we've worked through the materials. So we have preparing for teaching in a blended learning context. I'll actually put these links in the chat in just a second. So that was a site with the principles and the workflow on it. There's a lot more guidance on there in terms of accessibility and inclusivity. There's a glossary of terms. So if we've spoken about anything that you don't quite understand what that means, we've got clear clarification of those in a glossary. There's also the e-learning tools site, which documents basically all the tools we've got access to via Moodle and outside of that. So step-by-step guides of how to create things online, and also has access to the training calendar of events that are running over the summer. And finally, we've prepared 6 online Moodle courses. I'll just show you those now because we've got a bit of time. So preparing for teaching online, there are 6 Moodle modules we've developed. You don't have to study them all. Feel free to pick the one that suits your needs. So we have online communities and communication, which will give you some really good examples of how to work in a co-creation way to kind of foster good communities online, what tools to use, how to manage those. Online assessment and feedback. We've got equality, diversity, and inclusion, and these top 2 are probably most helpful for getting used to teaching online. Principles of online design, which I produced, covers the template in more detail, shows you what tools you can use to create the content. And active blended learning takes that further and talks about how to structure activities. There's lots of planning activities in terms of setting out a plan for your module for the semester and how that will fit together and what you can use. It has a lot of good discussion tools for you to, if you're team teaching on a module, it's a great way to work out who's doing what and how it will be delivered. So feel free to pick whichever one suits your needs, dip in and dip out as you need, but there are more detailed resources on those sites. And I think have those been sent out, Amy, or are they going out soon, do we know?
Which ones in particular?
Just the main site, the preparing for teaching online.
Yes, I'll put the link in the chat so you can self-enroll on it.
Stuff.
So it's all there and ready to go. People have been in that.
Fantastic. Cool. So feel free to unmute your mics and jump in with any questions you may have. I'm just going down through so I've got a question here from Rich Boakes. So not sure what I saw because.
Mike, that was a question about the slide that you're going from bottom to top with the flipped learning. And I wasn't sure if that was part of Moodle now or not, because I've got a slightly jumpy connection. It's dropping out occasionally.
It is, yes. The method for adding them is going to change very slightly this summer, but yes, it is part of Moodle. You can go directly to h5p.org. So for anyone that's not familiar with this, H5P is a set of online interactive materials. So the best way to describe it really is to show you some examples. So you can create dictation activities, you can create drag the word quiz questions. There are lots and lots of examples on there that just make rather than relying on text or PowerPoint slides, you can really make things a lot more interactive and engage students at a kind of higher level. They're available to create on this website, so you can create them on this website and download them onto Moodle, or you can create them directly in Moodle. We find this website is very good though, because each of the examples has a tutorial attached to it. So if I want to create one of these accordions, so a good way of summarizing topics, maybe for frequently asked questions, that's a good way to use these. You've got an example of what it looks like. So each of these fruits could be a question and the corresponding answer. But there's also, where's the tutorial? It says, there you go. And you can link to the tutorial as well, which has example media that you can include step-by-step instructions of how to create them. They're very good for knowledge check activities as well, just asking students quick questions in quite fun, interactive ways. But yes, available in Moodle or via this website directly.
That's cool. I did have another question, which is, I'm thinking about the flipped classroom and the idea that this is going to require students, and with flipped learning, they do all the learning individually, and then it's all about discussion for collaboration and applying what's been learned. So with COVID-19, a lot of that discussion, or more than ever, is going to move online. So our students are going to be relying on links to our teaching material. And we write stuff, especially for level 5 and level 6, that depends on level 4 and 5. So going back to previous learning is going to be important. Historically, at the end of every year, our rollover process breaks all links into Moodle because the URLs change. Does this still happen? And if it does, can that be fixed so that all of our students' bookmarks and links that they have in all their discussion groups are not going to break at the end of every year?
The problem is the archive moves those sites onto a separate site. So once they've been archived, they won't change again. But the URL for the archive is separate from Moodle. We have to do that because we can't indefinitely house modules. I know other universities, Solent University, I've got a colleague there that looks after their site, and they don't archive their sites on another site. They just grow and grow and grow, and they've had Moodle since 2008. It really worries me at how that doesn't affect their performance, and I think it does. So what we do is we move ours onto a separate instance. So the archive is available for a number of years, and it preserves our live Moodle instance, but they do have to change because they have to go to another site, unfortunately.
Could we not do something a little bit creative by giving modules a unique domain name each year? So this year we'd have 2020.moodle. So moodle.port would direct us to 2020.moodle, and then at the end of the year, 2020 would be moved to the archive, but 2020 would point to the archive as well.
We have done that in previous years. We had an archive for each academic year, and it became people became annoyed they had to go to a different site for each year's materials. So we've got anything that's been archived is on one site now. It's just one URL, and our live stuff is on live. I think it's easier for everyone. And I suppose yeah. For a technical solution, you could do some mod rewrite.
It's been easier at the moment because it's reduced complaints. My concern is that if we are asking students to be discussing things more online, they are going to start having way more links than they've ever had into Moodle, and we're going to break everything in 12 months' time, and we may have a big thing bite us in the arse. Yeah,
I take your point. I'll take that back to the technical team then and see what we can do. It's a fair point. Yeah, I think we'll have to think about that a little bit, because our existing rollover process has been designed for something that's not predominantly distance delivery. I'll see what we can come up with.
That's brilliant.
All right. Do you have any...
Can I just come in there, Rich, to mention that we are going to be creating either course level sites or department level sites, depending on the preference for the individual department. So we're hoping the creation of those sites, which can have this kind of format, will help with sort of students orientating themselves around the different kind of areas. I wanted to mention as well that we've thrown a lot at you in terms of different tools and different structures. Really, you need kind of a few key tools that you're using, and to kind of think about your teaching outside of Moodle. So I always find it better to work with pen and paper. I want to plan out and think my way through, and then I come to Moodle to build. Otherwise, it can get a bit in terms of the sequence a bit out of focus. If you are recording your lectures and you're going to chunk them up and deliver those first, we will have Panopto, which is a fantastic tool for that, and we'll make that really, really easy. In the meantime, it's quite straightforward to do that in Google Meet. As people have said, you can set yourself up to share your screen and record that, and then you have a file to share. So in terms of Panopto, it's on its way, and it will make that a lot easier. I'm going to mute now because I've got children having a tantrum in the background.
Okay, there's a couple of text questions that just responding to now. Is there any more questions anyone wants to kind of pose in person? The recording of the session is going to be available shortly. So there is actually a recording of the session from earlier in the week available on the website at the moment. Can you chop up a recorded lecture after filming it? Yes, you can. Yes, very easily. Panopto will allow you to do that. We've got access to Camtasia Studio, which you can do that in, but Panopto is much better, and you can do that very easily. All of the editing tools are actually in the browser, so you don't have to load up a different piece of software. You can record it from a button in Moodle. You can chop it up via Panopto, and yeah, very easy. Great stuff. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, then I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you very much for coming along. And yes, recording of the session available very shortly via the website. Lots of other sessions running today, and we'll kind of cover some of these things like knowledge check activities in more detail. Okay, thanks very much. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.